statement is that I want to develop a trading strategy which can reliably execute. Okay, so which can reliably execute in the sense that over the next 3 hours I want to execute 100,000 shares. So it must be able to execute 100,000 shares. It should not say that, okay, I have only been able to execute 50,000 shares. Can reliably execute within the given time frame and looking at what the market movements have been and trying to improve price if possible. So this is basically my very basic trading definition. So when I come in the morning and I want to develop this trading strategy, this is what my problem statement is. Now, if I look at it in mathematical term, I want to sell X shares and in the next 3 hours, okay, so there are 180 minutes available to me. So what I do is, I divide them into 5-minute periods. You can divide it into 2 minutes, 1 minute and so on and on. So I divide them into 5-minute periods. So now the total number of periods that I have is 36. So 100,000 shares divided by 36. So every period I have to sell or buy 100,000 divided by 36 shares. Very, very naive. Okay. Now, will you be happy with this kind of an average price? And what will be the average price? Okay. So there is something called as a volume weighted average price. Okay. This concept you will hear when you are trading in markets. If you have seen a trading terminal, it will at any given time also keep giving you with the best bid and ask. The VWAP is nothing but, okay, let me do a simple math on this one. Okay, so let's say the market starts, the first 100 shares are executed at a price of 101. The next 20 shares get executed at a price of 100 and the next 500 shares get executed at a price of, let's say, 101. Okay, and after that 380 shares, just to make it a round number, get executed at 102. Okay, I just keep calculating the VWAP. The VWAP at this point is 101. The VWAP at the next, this thing is something like 100.95. At the next is close to 100.98. And at a later stage it goes above and is like, let's say, 101.12. So what it is doing is, based on the weights, so at every time shares get traded, it takes that price in and calculates the VWAP of that. What it tells you is that how the market is moving and whether the market is currently, so what is the average rate at which a given share has been trading over time. Okay. Now what will happen is, if you're a client and you are, let's say that we all are brokers, okay, and we are basically our client phones us up and says that I want to buy 100,000 shares in next 3 hours. Okay, you say okay, and then what you do is you go and you hit a market order of 100,000 shares, and the market was going at 101, but since you hit a single market order of 100,000, the market moved to 120. Because at one instant, if you hit, what will happen is that there are only so many people standing in the market, so the market price moves significantly. And 3 hours later, you call up your client and you say, okay, your average price is 115 and you can take your shares. He will call you, he will look at the VWAP price and he will say, okay, the VWAP price for the entire day is 110. How come and why? When I asked you to buy, it was 101. Right now the price has come down to, has gone up to 110. But why did I get an average execution price of 115? And in India, it's a different scenario, because in India you have to give your client whatever he wants. You have to give your client whatever executions have happened on the exchange. So what happens is that there is something called as client code in India. Okay, so when you execute for your client, you execute in his client code. So exchange also know that this is a client order. Okay, and when you basically give your client the document that your shares have been bought, the exchange will be able to verify that these are the same thing. In US or in other markets, it's a totally different scenario. What happens is that this guy will call you up. Okay, so there is something called as passive client insurance. He's your big client. Okay, he calls you up and he says, buy 100,000 shares of this. And you start buying shares, and your average price is, let's say, 105. and this guy, and you call this guy up and you say, I've gotten this execution at 105, and he looks at the VWAP and says it's 104. And then he will blast you and he will say that I gave you an order at this price, the market price moved up, I'm okay with it, but the VWAP is 103. So how come my executions are at 105? And now you know that this is your big client. So in US what you can, and what the broker will do is he will say, okay, for you I will, okay, it's at 103. He will take a loss of 1 rupee and $1, and he will say, okay, I will give it to you at this, because this guy is a big client, he keeps giving you a lot of revenue. So, and if it has been a slippage on your own end, you will say, okay, it has been my problem, so I will take the loss. And another time what can happen is that your average executions that you did for client happened at 102, and you called up at your client and said, okay, it's 103, and he says it's okay, I'm willing to take 103, then you make your 103 minus 102, so you can make a $1 profit. So that can happen in US, that can happen in Europe, but not in India, because the exchanges are very strict there. But that is essentially what happens. So what happens is that this VWAP is basically the benchmark on which your client or your bosses or you can basically benchmark your trading strategy. So I want to buy a given number of shares over a given number of time, which is essentially nothing but a variant of a VWAP. Okay, I am trying to do some play on VWAP, but essentially how you will benchmark yourself is what is the market VWAP at that time. So if the market VWAP at that time was 104 and my trading strategy can let me buy shares at 103, that means that I have been able to, using this algorithm, been able to buy at a lower price than the market was able to. Is that fine? So if I am able to buy at a lower price than what the market on an average can, and if I can on an average sell at a price than the market can, then you have a trading strategy in itself. If you can buy on an average I am saying, not at that exact point, because you can never do that. But on an average you can sell at a price higher than the market can and buy at a price lower than the market can, then you have found the holy grail. Then you have unlimited amount of money. But which is not true. But what I am saying is that you can. Okay, so we'll try to see by which mechanisms or by what kind of a code we can do this kind of stuff. Okay. So this is essentially what we are trying to do. We are trying to